I am Danielle Morgan, 32 years old, and I built my life from scratch. After years of being overlooked in my family, I moved to Seattle for a major promotion in tech marketing that doubled my salary. No one noticed or cared until my cousin Amy posted a photo of my waterfront condo on social media. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't heard from in years were flooding my phone with messages. Then came the text from my mother. "You could sell that fancy condo and move somewhere cheaper to help your brother. He needs $39,000 to avoid bankruptcy." The audacity still stuns me. If this story sounds familiar or you're curious about what happened next, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. I grew up in Oak Ridge, a small town about 30 miles outside of Portland, Oregon. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where high school football games were community events, and where family reputation mattered more than it probably should have. In the Morgan family, I was the invisible middle child, sandwiched between two brothers who seemed to effortlessly capture our parents' attention. Jason, 2 years older than me, was the star athlete. From Little League through high school, my parents never missed a single one of his games. Our family schedule revolved around his baseball tournaments, basketball championships, and football practices. Kyle, my younger brother by 3 years, was the charmer. He had our mother wrapped around his finger from day one with his mischievous grin and quick wit. Even when he got into trouble, which was often, my parents would laugh it off as Kyle being Kyle. And then there was me. Quiet, studious, reliable Danielle. I got straight A's, participated in science competitions, and edited the school newspaper, none of which seemed to register on my parents' radar. One memory stands out crystal clear. I was 16, sitting at the dinner table with a letter announcing I'd been selected as a National Merit Scholar semifinalist. Only 5 students in our school's history had achieved this. I waited until everyone had served their plates before mentioning it. "That's nice, honey," my mother Margaret said, without looking up from helping Kyle cut his meat. He was 13, perfectly capable of cutting his own food, but she insisted on doing it for him. My father Robert barely glanced up from his plate. "Does that come with any money for college?" When I explained that finalists could qualify for scholarships, he nodded. "Good, because Jason's college fund is our priority right now with those baseball scouts coming around." The conversation immediately shifted to Jason's prospects for athletic scholarships and stayed there for the remainder of dinner. My academic achievement forgotten in less than 30 seconds. This pattern repeated throughout my childhood and teenage years. My accomplishments were footnotes if mentioned at all, while my brother's activities were headline news. The most painful example came during my high school graduation. As valedictorian, I would be giving a speech I'd worked on for weeks. I had marked the date on our family calendar months in advance. 2 weeks before graduation, Jason's baseball team made it to a regional tournament scheduled for the same weekend. There was never any question about what my parents would do. "You understand, right, Danny?" my mother said, not really asking. "This tournament could determine Jason's scholarship offers. Your brother needs this." I sat through my graduation ceremony with 2 empty seats where my parents should have been. My speech received a standing ovation from everyone else's family. I have exactly 3 photos from that day, taken by my English teacher, who noticed no one was there to capture the moment for me. When my parents returned Sunday night sunburned and excited about Jason's tournament victory, they barely asked about graduation. My diploma sat on the kitchen counter for a week before I finally took it to my room myself. I put myself through Oregon State University, while my brothers both received full financial support from my parents. Jason attended on a partial baseball scholarship, but my parents covered his apartment car and spending money. When Kyle decided to go to Portland Community College, they paid his full tuition and bought him a new laptop. I worked 3 jobs my freshman year, waitressing at a local diner, shelving books at the university library, and doing administrative work for an insurance office on weekends. I lived in the cheapest dorm available, ate ramen more often than I care to remember, and still graduated with student loan debt that would take me years to pay off. Not a single family member attended my college graduation. Jason had a baseball game, of course, and my parents wouldn't miss that. Kyle had concert tickets he'd bought months before. "You already did the graduation thing once," my mother said when I called to confirm they weren't coming. "It's not like this one is any different, right?" After college, I found an entry-level marketing position at a small agency in Portland. The salary was barely enough to afford a tiny studio apartment with a roommate, but it was a foot in the door of the career I wanted. During those early years, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Sunday phone calls to my mother became a monthly obligation. Family gatherings were exercises in invisibility. At Thanksgiving, my job was never discussed, but everyone heard every detail about Jason's baseball coaching position at a local high school or Kyle's latest girlfriend. One Christmas stands out in my memory. I had just been promoted to account manager after only 18 months at the agency, a significant achievement in our competitive field. When I mentioned it as we opened gifts, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," before immediately turning to Kyle, who had just unwrapped the keys to a new car my parents had bought him for Christmas. "Can you believe it? Our baby boy is driving an Audi now," she exclaimed, as if Kyle had somehow earned this gift rather than having it handed to him. That night, as I drove back to my apartment in my 7-year-old Honda with the check engine light perpetually on, I finally accepted what I had probably always known I would never be a priority to my parents. And somehow, that realization was freeing. If I couldn't earn their attention or approval, no matter what I achieved, then I might as well stop trying and just live for myself. Little did I know that decision would lead me to success beyond anything I could have imagined, and would eventually force my family to see me in a way they never had before. By my 4th year at the Portland agency, I had established myself as someone who consistently delivered results for clients. While my colleagues went home at 5, I stayed late mastering new digital marketing platforms and analytics tools. I used my own money for online courses in SEO, social media strategy, and content marketing, while my peers spent their disposable income on weekend trips and happy hours. My dedication didn't go unnoticed by management or clients. I was assigned increasingly important accounts and given more creative control over campaigns. But the real breakthrough came when our agency landed Jetstream Tech, a rising software company that needed a complete marketing overhaul for their new product line. "Danielle, we want you to lead this one," my boss said, sliding the brief across the table. They specifically asked for someone who understands both technical products and consumer psychology. That's you. The Jetstream campaign consumed my life for 6 months. I worked nights and weekends researching their industry competitors and target audience. I built a comprehensive strategy that included everything from website redesign to influencer partnerships. When the campaign launched, it exceeded all projections. Jetstream's new product line saw an 87% increase in qualified leads and a 43% boost in conversion rates. The campaign won 2 industry awards and caught the attention of TechFront, a major Seattle-based tech company known for poaching top talent. Their head of recruitment called me directly. "We've been watching your work, Danielle. The Jetstream campaign was impressive. We'd like to discuss bringing you on as our marketing director for the West Coast division." The offer they made was stunning, nearly double my current salary, plus benefits and stock options. The position would give me a team of my own and a budget 10 times what I was working with at the agency. It meant moving to Seattle, but after years of being overlooked in Portland in both my professional and personal life, a fresh start was appealing. I accepted the offer without telling my family until after I had signed the contract, found an apartment, and set a moving date. I mentioned it casually during a rare call home. "By the way, I'm moving to Seattle next month. I got a director position at TechFront." "Seattle? But it rains so much there," my mother replied. "Are you sure about this? You'll be so far from family." The irony of her concern about distance when I lived 30 minutes away and sometimes went months without seeing them wasn't lost on me. "It's a great opportunity," I said firmly. "The moving company comes on the 15th. "Well, if you're sure. Oh, did I tell you Jason's team made it to state semifinals? We're all going to watch this weekend. Would have invited you, but now that you're moving..." And just like that, the conversation shifted back to my brother. My life-changing career move relegated to an inconvenient scheduling note. The move to Seattle was both terrifying and exhilarating. I had never lived outside of Oregon, and now I was relocating to a major city where I knew no one. I rented a modest one-bedroom apartment near the tech front office and threw myself into learning everything about my new position. The pressure was intense. TechFront had hired me based on my reputation, but now I had to prove I deserved the title and salary. I was younger than most directors at the company, and I could feel the skepticism from some of my new colleagues. My team consisted of 15 marketing professionals, most of whom had been at TechFront longer than I had. Earning their respect became my first priority. I stayed at the office until 9 or 10 most nights, learning the company's systems, reviewing past campaigns, and developing new strategies. The first few months were lonely. My apartment remained sparsely furnished, as I had little time for shopping or decorating. Weekends were spent catching up on work rather than exploring my new city. My neighbor Sophia Kim became my first real friend in Seattle. She noticed me bringing in groceries one rainy evening and invited me for dinner in her apartment. "You've lived here 3 months and I've never seen you with a visitor," she said, serving homemade kimchi jjigae. "No offense, but that's not healthy." Sophia was a software engineer at Amazon with an infectious laugh and no tolerance for self-pity. When I admitted I hadn't made time to meet people, she promptly added me to her weekend hiking group text chain. "Be ready at 7 on Saturday," she instructed. "No excuses. All you need are sturdy shoes and a water bottle." That first hike up Rattlesnake Ledge with Sophia's friends was the beginning of me actually living in Seattle rather than just working there. Through her, I met people who became my local support system, who invited me to dinner parties and introduced me to the city's neighborhoods. At work, my strategies were beginning to show results. Our quarterly numbers exceeded projections, and the West Coast team's campaigns were being adopted by other divisions. After 18 months of 60-hour weeks and constant innovation, I was called into the CEO's office. "Your work has transformed our marketing approach," she said. "We're promoting you to senior director and increasing your equity stake in the company." The promotion came with another substantial salary increase and a larger team. For the first time in my life, I was not just financially stable, but genuinely prosperous. After years of paycheck-to-paycheck living and student loan stress, I could breathe. With my new financial situation, I decided to stop throwing away money on rent and invest in property. Seattle's real estate market was notoriously competitive, but I had saved aggressively and qualified for a surprisingly good mortgage rate thanks to my excellent credit score, a benefit of years of meticulous financial management. After looking at dozens of properties, I founded a waterfront condo in a renovated historic building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. The moment I walked in, I knew it was mine. The price was at the very top of my budget, but something about the space spoke to me. It represented everything I had worked for, a tangible manifestation of my success that no one could minimize or ignore. On the day I got the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room as the sunset painted the water gold and pink. I had never owned anything so beautiful, so completely mine. I took a photo and nearly sent it to my parents before stopping myself. What was the point? They'd respond with a perfunctory, "nice," before telling me about Jason's latest coaching victory or Kyle's new job prospect. Instead, I sent the photo to Sophia, who immediately responded with champagne emojis and "housewarming party this weekend, no arguments." As I settled into my new home and growing role at TechFront, the calls home became even less frequent. My parents rarely initiated contact, and when I called them, the conversations remained frustratingly one-sided. They never asked about my job or life in Seattle. If I offered information about a successful campaign or company achievement, they would listen politely before steering the conversation back to my brothers. "That's nice you're doing well at work, honey. Did we tell you Kyle is thinking of opening his own gym? We're so excited for him." After a while, I stopped offering information. What was the use of sharing my life with people who didn't seem interested? I built a fulfilling existence in Seattle with friends who celebrated my successes and supported me through challenges. For the first time, I didn't feel the ache of being overlooked because I was truly seen by the people around me. I had no idea that one innocent social media post was about to shatter this careful separation I had constructed between my successful present and my invisibility-marked past. The message from my cousin Amy came on a Tuesday morning as I was reviewing quarterly marketing projections in my office at TechFront. Danny, long time no talk. I'm coming to Seattle with some friends this weekend. Would love to catch up if you're free. Can't believe we've both been on the West Coast for years and haven't seen each other. Amy was my father's brother's daughter, 2 years younger than me. Growing up, we'd been close in the way that children thrown together at family gatherings often are. She'd witnessed my invisibility in the family dynamic, but had never acknowledged it. After high school, our contact had dwindled to occasional birthday texts and obligatory holiday greetings. My initial reaction was hesitation. Amy represented a connection to the family that had never made me a priority. But she had never been unkind, just complicit in the family's pattern of overlooking me. After a moment's consideration, I replied, agreeing to dinner on Friday night. We met at Altura, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. I arrived early and watched Amy enter, her eyes widening as she took in the elegant space. "Wow, Danielle, this place is fancy," she said, hugging me. "You look amazing, so professional and put together." I was wearing a simple black dress with a statement necklace. Nothing extraordinary, but certainly different from the discount store clothes I'd worn through college. "Thanks, Amy. You look great, too. How's Portland treating you?" As we settled into dinner, I was surprised to find Amy genuinely interested in my life. She asked detailed questions about my role at TechFront, listened attentively to my answers, and seemed impressed by my career trajectory. "I always knew you were smart," she said, "but I had no idea you'd become this marketing powerhouse. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Robert never really talk about what you're doing." "That doesn't surprise me," I replied, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. "They've always been more focused on Jason and Kyle." Amy had the grace to look embarrassed. "Yeah, I've noticed that. It's not right how they—" She trailed off, apparently uncomfortable acknowledging the family dynamic directly. "It's okay," I said, though it wasn't. "I've made my peace with it. Tell me about your friends who came to Seattle with you." We spent the rest of dinner catching up on her life teaching elementary school, her recent breakup, her plans to get a master's degree. It was superficial, but pleasant, and when she suggested meeting up the next day for a tour of the city, I agreed. Saturday morning, I picked Amy up from her hotel and showed her around Seattle. We visited Pike Place Market, took the ferry to Bainbridge Island, and ended up back at my condo for a glass of wine before her dinner plans with her friends. When Amy stepped into my condo, she actually gasped, "Danielle, this is incredible. You can see the entire sound from here." I tried to downplay it, uncomfortable with her obvious awe. The views sold me on the place. It's peaceful after long days at the office. Amy wandered from window to window, taking in the panoramic views of the water, the islands in the distance, and the mountains on the horizon. The late afternoon sun was turning the water to molten gold, one of those perfect Seattle moments that made every rainy day worthwhile. "Can I take a photo of this amazing view for Instagram?" Amy asked, already pulling out her phone. "My friends won't believe this." I hesitated for a moment, but couldn't think of a reason to refuse. "Sure, go ahead." She snapped several photos, her thumbs moving quickly over her screen as she presumably added filters and a caption. I thought nothing more of it as we finished our wine, and I drove her back to meet her friends. Sunday passed quietly. I went for a morning run along the waterfront, had brunch with Sophia, and spent the afternoon preparing for an important presentation on Monday. It wasn't until evening that my phone began buzzing with notifications at an unusual rate. First came a text from my mother, who had last messaged me 3 months ago on my birthday, with a generic, "Happy birthday, love Mom and Dad." "Your condo looks expensive. Never knew you were doing so well." Confused. I opened Instagram and found Amy's post from the previous day, a sunset shot from my living room windows with the caption, "Living the dream at Cousin Danielle's amazing Seattle waterfront condo. Our waterfront and our success. Our family pride." She had tagged me in the post, which had garnered dozens of likes and comments from family members, including both my parents, aunts, uncles, and various cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. "Is that really Danielle's place? Wow, someone is doing well for themselves. That view must cost a fortune." And then my phone started ringing. My father, who typically called only on Christmas and my birthday, was suddenly interested in a Sunday evening chat. "Danielle, how are you, sweetheart? Mom and I were just talking about you." His false cheerfulness set my teeth on edge. "Were you? That's unusual." There was an awkward pause before he continued. "Amy showed us your place. Quite a view there. Business must be booming." "I've been at TechFront for almost 3 years now, Dad. I'm a senior director." Right. That tech company. Listen, I was wondering if you'd heard from your brother Jason lately." And there it was, the real reason for the call. Not interest in my life, but some connection to Jason. "No, I haven't. Is something wrong?" "Well, he's been having some tough times with his business venture. You know, he opened that sports training facility for kids. Great concept, but the location turned out to be problematic, and startup costs were higher than expected." As my father rambled about Jason's business troubles, more text notifications popped up on my screen. Distant relatives I hadn't heard from in a decade suddenly wanted to know if I was still enjoying Seattle and if I'd thought about investing in family businesses. After ending the call with my father with a non-committal, "I hope things work out for Jason," I scrolled through the messages with growing unease. It was as if Amy's innocent post had activated some kind of homing beacon, drawing attention to the success I'd built far away from family scrutiny. The week that followed was surreal. Every day brought new messages from family members who had previously shown no interest in my life. My mother called twice to check in, something that hadn't happened since I moved to Seattle. Kyle texted asking if TechFront was hiring despite having no experience in technology or marketing. I tried to focus on work, but the constant pings from my phone were distracting. By Friday, I was exhausted from navigating the sudden spotlight and maintaining professional composure at the office. Then at 11:37 p.m., the message that would change everything arrived from my mother. "Honey, we've been thinking. That condo must be worth a fortune. You could sell it and move somewhere cheaper to help your brother. He needs about $39K to avoid bankruptcy after his business failed. Family helps family." I stared at the text in disbelief, reading and rereading it to make sure I wasn't misinterpreting. The audacity was stunning. After years of being an afterthought in my family, I was suddenly valuable, not for who I was, but for what I could provide. The message made one thing crystal clear: my parents hadn't forgotten I existed. They had simply been waiting for me to be useful to them. The morning after receiving my mother's outrageous text, I woke to 3 missed calls from my parents and 1 from Jason. I ignored them all and went for a long run along the waterfront, trying to process the anger and hurt churning inside me. By afternoon, my voicemail was full. I finally listened while sitting on my balcony watching ferries cross the Sound. "Danielle, it's Mom. Call me back when you get this. We need to discuss the family situation." "Danny, Dad here. Your mother and I are concerned about Jason. We should talk about how you can help." "Hey sis, it's Jason. Mom said she texted you about my situation. Could really use your help right now. Call me back." Each message made my blood pressure rise. There was no "how are you?" No acknowledgement of the inappropriateness of suggesting I sell my home. Just an expectation that I would leap to solve a problem for the brother who had always been prioritized over me. I texted my mother, "I'm not selling my condo. We can talk next week when I've had time to think." Her response was immediate. "This is an emergency, Danielle. Your brother could lose everything." I turned off my phone and spent the weekend in deliberate isolation, declining even Sophia's invitation to Sunday brunch. I needed to process this alone. Monday morning, I switched my phone back on to find a family group chat had been created specifically to discuss helping Jason. The participants included my parents, Kyle, Jason, 2 aunts, an uncle, and several cousins, including Amy, who at least had the decency to remain silent in the conversation. The messages were a masterclass in manipulation. Mom. Danielle has always been the lucky one. Everything comes easily to her. Dad. We've always been there for you kids. Now it's time for family to step up for Jason. Aunt Linda. Family is all we have in this world. Blood comes first. Kyle. Come on, Danny. It's not like you need all that space anyway. You're just one person. Jason. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. My whole future is on the line. Reading through the chat, it became clear that no one in my family had any concept of how hard I had worked for my success. In their narrative, I was lucky, or things came easily to me, a convenient fiction that erased years of struggle, sacrifice, and 80-hour work weeks. I called my mother directly, unable to stomach continuing in the group chat. "Mom, I'm not selling my condo. That's completely unreasonable." "Danielle, don't be selfish. Your brother needs help. We're not asking for a handout just for you to make some sacrifices like we always did for you kids." I nearly choked on the irony. "What sacrifices did you make for me specifically, Mom? Can you name one?" "Don't be ridiculous. We drove you to all those science competitions." "Once, Mom. Dad drove me to state finals once, and only because Jason had a stomach bug and couldn't play in his game that day." "That's not true. We always supported all three of you equally." The blatant rewriting of history pushed me past my breaking point. "Mom, when was my college graduation ceremony?" "What? How should I remember the exact date?" "You don't need to remember the date. Just tell me one thing about it. Was it indoors or outdoors? What color was my graduation gown? Did I give a speech?" Her silence was deafening. "You don't know because you weren't there," I continued. "None of you were there. You were at Jason's baseball tournament." "That's not fair, Danielle. Your brother needed—" "Stop. Just stop." My voice shook with decades of suppressed anger. I put myself through college working 3 jobs. I built my career without any help from family. I bought this condo with money I earned through years of hard work. I am not selling it to bail out Jason. "Well," my mother's voice had turned cold, "I never thought you'd turn your back on family like this." After hanging up, I did something I'd never done before. I researched Jason's business situation online. His sports training facility, Elite Youth Athletics, had opened 18 months ago, with local media coverage touting Jason's background as a former college athlete and high school coach. Recent reviews were sparse and mostly negative, complaining about canceled sessions and equipment issues. More telling was what I found by digging deeper. This wasn't Jason's first failed business. Before the training facility, he had opened and closed a sporting goods store and a protein shake kiosk in the local mall. Each venture had lasted less than 2 years. I called my father's brother, Uncle Steve, who had always been more even-handed in his treatment of all the Morgan children. Uncle Steve has the family help Jason financially with his businesses before— His hesitation told me everything before he even spoke. "Your parents remortgaged their house to help with the sporting goods store, and I believe they used some of their retirement savings for this training center startup. So this isn't the first time they've bailed him out." "No, but Danielle, they're worried. They've tied up a lot of their financial security in Jason's ventures." The picture became clearer. My parents had enabled Jason's poor business decisions and were now in financial trouble themselves. Rather than addressing the real issue, Jason's pattern of failure, and their enabling, they saw my success as the solution. The text messages and calls continued relentlessly. Family members I barely knew weighed in on my obligation to help. Several offered to come visit Seattle to discuss in person, a transparent attempt to pressure me face to face. Kyle called late one evening, adopting the role of mediator. "Danny, I know Mom and Dad can be intense, but Jason really is in trouble. We're family. We need to stick together." Where was this family unity when I was working 3 jobs to put myself through school? "Kyle, did anyone offer to help me then?" "That was different," he said dismissively. "You were always independent. You didn't need help." "I wasn't independent by choice. I had to be because no one was there for me." "You're being dramatic. Look, none of us have the resources you do. That condo alone probably has enough equity to solve this whole problem." The condo I bought with my own money after working 60-hour weeks for years. The condo that represents security I built for myself because I learned early on I couldn't count on family support. Kyle's tone turned nasty. "Wow, success has really changed you. You used to be humble. Now you're just showing off your money and refusing to help when we need you." After that call, I blocked my family's numbers for 72 hours. The constant stress was affecting my work and health. I wasn't sleeping, my appetite had disappeared, and I had snapped at a team member during a meeting, something I had never done before. Sophia noticed my distraction during our weekly dinner at her place. "Okay, spill it. You've checked your phone 17 times, and you look like you haven't slept in days." I told her everything. The photo, the sudden interest from my family, the outrageous request to sell my condo, the ongoing pressure campaign. "That's not family," Sophia said bluntly. "That's a group of people who ignored you until they wanted something from you." "But what if they're right? What if I am being selfish? $39,000 is a lot of money, but I could technically access it without selling the condo." "Could you?" "Sure. Should you absolutely not?" Sophia topped off my wine glass. "This isn't about the money. It's about them seeing you as an ATM rather than a person. If you give in now, you're teaching them that this behavior works." She was right, of course. This was about boundaries I had never properly established. It was about finally demanding the respect I had earned but never received from my family. The next morning, I unblocked my family's numbers and opened my laptop. It was time to respond to the family crisis, not by giving in, but by standing firm in my worth. For 3 days, I drafted and redrafted my response to my family. Each version began strong, but devolved into either defensive justifications or bitter accusations. Neither approach felt right. I decided to seek professional guidance and scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Meredith Lane, a therapist I had seen occasionally since moving to Seattle. She specialized in family dynamics and had helped me process my childhood experiences of emotional neglect. "You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm," Dr. Lane said after listening to the situation. "Healthy boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary." With her guidance, I crafted a response that was firm, but not bitter, clear, but not cruel. On Thursday evening, I sent a carefully worded message to the family group chat. "I've given a lot of thought to the situation with Jason's business. I will not be selling my condo or providing $39,000 to bail out his third failed venture. This is a boundary I am setting for my own financial and emotional well-being. What I can offer instead: 1. Help Jason network with sports marketing contacts in Portland who might help him pivot his business model. 2. Connect him with a business coach I know who specializes in small business turnarounds. 3. Provide feedback on his business plan if he would like an outside perspective. I care about all of you, but I need my boundaries to be respected. My home is not a financial resource for family emergencies. I worked extremely hard for everything I have, often without family support. I hope you can understand and respect my position." The response was immediate and explosive. My mother: "I cannot believe how cold you've become. After everything we did for you growing up, we never thought you'd turn your back on family like this." My father: "Deeply disappointed in your selfishness, Danielle. This isn't how we raised you." Jason: "Thanks for nothing. Easy for you to give advice when you're looking down from your luxury condo. Some sister you turned out to be." Kyle: "Wow, just wow. Guess money really does change people. Hope that view is worth losing your family over." Aunt Linda: "Your poor mother is in tears. I hope you're happy." The barrage continued throughout the evening. I turned off notifications, but couldn't help checking, periodically watching, as family members I barely knew condemned my character and questioned my values. Only 2 messages stood out from the avalanche of guilt and manipulation. Uncle Steve: "I understand your position, Danielle. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Let me know if you need to talk." Cousin Amy: "I'm so sorry my photo caused all this drama. I had no idea they would react this way. Please don't hate me." I responded privately to both thanking Uncle Steve for his understanding and assuring Amy that I didn't blame her for posting the photo. She couldn't have known it would trigger such a family meltdown. The next day, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but decided it was better to have this conversation directly rather than letting it fester. "I raised you better than this," she began without preamble, her voice thick with tears. "Family takes care of family. That's what we always taught you kids." "Did you, Mom?" because from where I stand, family has always meant Jason and Kyle get everything while I get overlooked. That is absolutely not true. We treated all of you exactly the same. You missed my high school graduation for Jason's baseball tournament. That was one time, and it was an important game. You missed my college graduation too, and my first job promotion celebration, and when I moved to Seattle, and when I was promoted to director, and when I bought my condo. Should I continue? You're being ridiculous. We can't be everywhere at once, and you were always so independent. I was independent because I had to be. No one was supporting me. The conversation circled without resolution. My mother could not or would not acknowledge the pattern of favoritism that had defined my childhood and adult relationship with my parents. My father's message came by email the next day, a cold, formal declaration of disappointment that read more like a business correspondence than a note from father to daughter. He questioned my values, suggested I had forgotten where I came from, and implied that my success had corrupted my character. What neither of them addressed was Jason's responsibility in the situation, his pattern of failed businesses, his apparent mismanagement of significant funds they had already provided, or his plan for avoiding similar problems in the future. The following week brought news through the family grapevine that a family meeting had been held without me to discuss my attitude problem. My cousin Zoe, who at 21 was one of the few relatives I still had a decent relationship with, sent me screenshots of a family email thread discussing how to handle the Danielle situation. The messages were revealing Mom. She's always been stubborn, but this is different. I don't recognize my daughter anymore. Dad, success has gone to her head. She's forgotten where she came from. Jason, she's showing off that fancy condo and career while I'm facing bankruptcy, some family loyalty. Aunt Linda, Margaret, you need to remind her that she wouldn't have gotten anywhere without the values you and Robert instilled in her. The irony of them claiming credit for my success after years of minimal support was almost laughable if it hadn't been so painful. The practical outcome of my refusal was swift and predictable. I was excluded from family events. No invitation came for the annual 4th of July barbecue at my parents' house. When my grandmother celebrated her 80th birthday, I learned about the party after the fact through Facebook photos. The most cutting blow came in a text from my mother after I sent my grandmother a gift and card. Maybe when you mature and understand that family comes first, you'll be welcome at family gatherings again. The message was clear. My place in the family was conditional on financial compliance. I was only welcome if I was willing to be the solution to problems I hadn't created. Despite knowing I had made the right decision, the exclusion stung deeply. Years of therapy had helped me understand the dynamic, but hadn't completely healed the wound of being the least favored child. Part of me still longed for the parental approval I had never received. The stress manifested physically. I developed insomnia waking at 3 a.m. with anxiety about family messages I might face in the morning. My appetite diminished, and I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. During an important presentation to the executive team, my hands shook noticeably as I clicked through slides. After that embarrassing moment, I realized I needed to take more decisive action for my well-being. With Dr. Lane's encouragement, I temporarily blocked all family numbers except for Uncle Steve and Cousin Zoe. I deleted the family group chat without reading the most recent messages. I removed social media apps from my phone to avoid seeing posts that might trigger anxiety. "This isn't permanent, doctor," Lane assured me. "It's a necessary pause to protect your mental health while you develop stronger boundaries." Sophia and my other Seattle friends rallied around me, providing distraction and support when the isolation from family felt overwhelming. A small dinner party at Sophia's apartment, weekend hiking trips to nearby mountains, movie nights where we explicitly banned serious conversation. "You have family here," Sophia told me one evening as we watched the sunset from my condo balcony. "Not the kind you're born with, but the kind who choose you every day." Looking at her steady presence, her unwavering support, her complete acceptance of me exactly as I was, I finally understood what real family should feel like. It was a revelation, both healing and heartbreaking. The painful truth was becoming clearer. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved. And sometimes the healthiest love is conditional, based on mutual respect and authentic connection, not mere biological relation. This realization didn't make the situation less painful, but it gave me the strength to maintain the boundaries I had set, even as the weeks of family silence stretched into months. 3 months of radio silence from my family gave me space to focus on healing and personal growth. Without the constant drain of trying to earn approval that never came, I found I had more energy for things that actually brought me joy. I committed fully to weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Lane, digging deeper into the family patterns that had shaped my self-perception. Understanding that my invisibility in my family wasn't my fault, something I had intellectually known but hadn't emotionally accepted, was transformative. Children don't cause parental favoritism, Dr. Lane explained during one particularly emotional session. It's the parent's issue, not the child's inadequacy. Through therapy, I connected with a support group for adults with difficult family relationships. Hearing others share experiences similar to mine helped normalize my feelings and validate my decision to establish boundaries. The group became a safe space to express the grief and anger I had suppressed for years. Meanwhile, I doubled down on strengthening connections with my chosen family in Seattle. Sophia introduced me to her wider circle of friends, many of whom had also relocated to the city and built lives far from their origins. We celebrated birthdays and job promotions, helped each other through breakups and disappointments, and created our own traditions. At work, I found my voice in ways I never had before. Without the constant background anxiety of family approval, I spoke up more confidently in meetings, advocated more strongly for my team, and took creative risks that previously would have terrified me. TechFront held its annual leadership retreat in September, a 3-day gathering at a lodge on the Olympic Peninsula. On the final evening, the CEO recognized my team's marketing campaign for the company's new enterprise software as the most innovative and effective launch in company history. "Danielle Morgan has transformed our approach to marketing," she announced to the room of executives. "Her vision and leadership have directly contributed to our 28% growth this quarter." The following week, I was promoted to senior director with an equity package that would vest over 4 years, a clear signal that the company saw me as a long-term leader in the organization. As my professional confidence grew, I began looking for ways to give back. TechFront had a robust community engagement program, including a partnership with a local nonprofit called Code Her that taught coding skills to girls from underserved communities. I volunteered as a mentor working with teenage girls who reminded me of myself, ambitious but lacking family support for their academic interests. During a Code Her weekend workshop, I met Michael Sanderson, another volunteer who worked as a software architect at Microsoft. He was patient with the students, using creative analogies to explain complex coding concepts, and had a quiet sense of humor that put even the shyest girls at ease. "What brought you to Code Her?" I asked during a coffee break. "Personal experience," he said. "I grew up in a household where education wasn't valued. My parents thought computing was a waste of time. A teacher took interest in me, let me use the school computers after hours, helped me apply for scholarships. I want to be that person for someone else." Something in his story resonated deeply. As we continued talking, I learned Michael had also navigated complicated family dynamics, including estrangement from his father after setting boundaries around verbal abuse. "Family is complicated," he said. "Sometimes the healthiest thing is distance." Our conversation continued long after the workshop ended, moving to a nearby cafe and then a walk along the waterfront. Michael was thoughtful and direct, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than politeness. For the first time in ages, I found myself sharing the full truth of my family situation, including the recent Condo drama. "They showed you exactly who they are," he said when I finished. "It hurts, but there's clarity in that." Our friendship developed naturally over the following weeks. We volunteered together at Code Her events, discovered a shared love of obscure documentary films, and talked for hours about everything from data privacy ethics to our favorite childhood books. As Thanksgiving approached, I faced the prospect of my first major holiday completely cut off from family. In previous years, even with our strained relationship, I had made the obligatory trip to Oregon for Thanksgiving dinner. Sophia solved the dilemma by declaring, "You're coming to my parents' house, non-negotiable. They already consider you family anyway." The Kim family Thanksgiving was nothing like the tense hierarchical gatherings of my childhood. Sophia's parents, first-generation immigrants from Korea, had created a beautiful hybrid celebration that included both traditional Thanksgiving dishes and Korean specialties. Their home hummed with laughter, friendly debates, and genuine interest in each person present. Mr. Kim raised a toast during dinner. To family by blood and by choice, both are treasures. His eyes met mine as he added, "Some of us are lucky enough to find our chosen family. Sophia has always had excellent taste in friends." That evening, surrounded by people who had no obligation to care for me, but did so anyway, I felt a weight lifting that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The holiday season continued to bring unexpected healing. Michael invited me to a Christmas concert at the Seattle Symphony. Sophia's family insisted I join their New Year's celebration. My code. Her students made me a handmade card, thanking me for believing in girls who like computers. Small moments of connection accumulated, creating a tapestry of belonging that had nothing to do with DNA and everything to do with mutual respect and genuine care. Through the family grapevine, primarily Uncle Steve and Cousin Zoe, I learned that Jason had found a job as an assistant athletic director at a private school through a connection of our father's. The immediate financial crisis had been averted without my involvement. In a brief civil exchange of Christmas texts with my parents, I maintained my boundaries while opening the door a crack. "Merry Christmas to you both. I hope the new year brings health and peace to our family." My mother's response was equally civil, but distant. "Merry Christmas, Danielle. The boys miss you." "Not we miss you," I noted. Some patterns were too ingrained to change easily. The most surprising development came in January when I received a message from my 17-year-old cousin Zoe. "Can I ask your advice about something I'm applying to colleges for marketing programs, and everyone says you're the expert in the family?" This simple acknowledgement of my professional success from a family member was surprisingly meaningful. I offered to review Zoe's application essays and discussed different programs with her via video chat. "Everyone talks about Jason and Kyle all the time," she confided during one of our calls, "but you're the one who actually did something impressive. I kind of want to follow your path." "Including the family drama?" I asked, only half joking. "Maybe not that part," she laughed, "but the independence part, definitely." Over the following weeks, I helped Zoe prepare her college applications, research scholarship opportunities, and develop a plan for supporting herself through school if family assistance fell short. She was bright and determined, reminding me of myself at that age, but with one crucial difference: she had someone in the family who saw her potential and was willing to support it. "I got accepted to Oregon State with a partial scholarship," she texted in March. "The same program you did. I'm so proud of you," I replied, meaning it deeply. "Let me know how I can help with the next steps." "Actually," she began, then hesitated. "Would you consider helping me with tuition? My parents can only cover part, and I don't want to start with huge loans." For a moment, I thought history was repeating itself, another family member wanting financial assistance. But Zoe quickly added, "I know it's a lot to ask. I've been researching work-study programs and additional scholarships too. And I promise I'm not just asking because you have money. You're the only one who really gets why education matters so much to me." The difference was stark. Zoe had done her homework, was exploring all options, and approached me with respect rather than entitlement. After careful consideration, I decided to establish a modest educational fund for her, nothing that would strain my finances, but enough to ensure she wouldn't have to work 3 jobs like I had. "This is specifically for education," I clarified, "and it comes with mentorship, not just money. We'll review your grades and career plans each semester." Her gratitude was genuine and unentitled. "I won't let you down," she promised. "Someday I hope to do this for someone else." As the 1-year anniversary of the Condo photo incident approached, I reflected on how much had changed. My career continued to flourish. My circle of meaningful relationships had expanded. I had established healthier boundaries with family while nurturing the few family connections that were based on mutual respect. The pain of family rejection hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something more manageable, a dull ache rather than a sharp wound. And in its place had grown something precious, the certainty that I was worthy of love and respect, regardless of whether my family of origin could provide it. What I didn't yet know was that the story wasn't over. The coming year would bring unexpected developments in the Morgan family dynamic developments that would test my boundaries, challenge my growth, and ultimately lead to a resolution I couldn't have imagined during those dark days when a simple photo had exposed the conditional nature of my family ties. As cherry blossoms bloomed across Seattle, marking a full year since the Condo photo incident, my life had found a new equilibrium. I maintained minimal but civil contact with my immediate family, primarily through holiday texts and occasional updates on major life events. The raw pain of their rejection had dulled, replaced by a measured acceptance of our limited relationship. My work at TechFront continued to thrive. The marketing campaigns my team developed consistently outperformed industry benchmarks, leading to greater responsibility and visibility within the company. I had been asked to represent TechFront at several high-profile industry conferences, establishing myself as a thought leader in tech marketing. My personal life had blossomed as well. My friendship with Michael had gradually evolved into something deeper. We moved slowly, both cautious from past wounds, but by spring we were officially dating. Michael understood my family history in a way few others could, having navigated his own complex family dynamics. "It's strange," I told him one evening as we walked along Alki Beach. "Growing up, I thought something was wrong with me because my family couldn't see me. Now I understand the problem was never mine." He squeezed my hand. "Some people aren't capable of seeing beyond their own narratives. That's their limitation, not yours." Our relationship developed on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's growth, something I had never experienced in my family of origin. Michael celebrated my professional accomplishments without competition or minimization. I supported his work, leading a major software architecture overhaul at Microsoft, listening to his challenges and offering perspective without trying to fix everything. In April, my cousin Zoe was accepted to Oregon State's business program with a partial scholarship. True to my promise, I established an education fund to supplement her financial aid package. "I don't want you to struggle like I did," I told her during our celebration dinner in Portland. "But I also want you to value your education by having some skin in the game." "I already have a campus job lined up," she assured me, "and I'm applying for department scholarships once I start classes." Zoe's maturity and drive reminded me of myself at her age, but with one crucial difference: she had a family member actively supporting her ambitions. Becoming the person I had needed when I was younger brought unexpected healing. As Mother's Day approached, I sent my mom a simple card with a restaurant gift certificate, a polite gesture that maintained boundaries while acknowledging the day. I expected nothing in return, which is why the phone call 3 days later caught me completely off guard. "Danielle?" My mother's voice sounded different, hesitant, almost vulnerable. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Cautiously, I agreed. "I've been doing some thinking," she began. "About you, about our relationship. I'm not good at this, but maybe we haven't always appreciated your path." The understatement was so enormous I almost laughed. "That's one way of putting it." "I'm trying, Danielle." For perhaps the first time in our relationship, she sounded genuinely uncertain. "Would you be open to meeting when you're next in Oregon? Just us, no dad, no brothers." The request was unexpected enough to give me pause. In all my adult life, my mother had never sought one-on-one time with me. Our interactions had always been in the context of full family gatherings, where I inevitably faded into the background. After consulting with Dr. Lane about healthy boundaries for such a meeting, I agreed to meet my mother during my next trip to Portland to visit Zoe in June. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between my parents' house and the hotel where I was staying. My mother arrived punctually, looking older than I remembered, more tentative. "You look well," she said after an awkward hug. "Seattle must agree with you." "It does," I replied. I've built a good life there." We ordered coffee and navigated painful small talk until finally my mother set down her cup with purpose. "I need to say something, and I'm not very good at this." She took a deep breath. "After you refused to help Jason last year, I was angry, very angry. I told myself you had changed, that success had made you selfish and cold. I tensed, preparing for another attack. But then," she continued, "your Uncle Steve said something that kept bothering me. He asked when was the last time we had shown up for you the way we expected you to show up for your brothers." My breath caught. Uncle Steve had gone to bat for me. "I couldn't answer him," my mother admitted. And that bothered me enough that I started thinking about it, really thinking. I even found an old calendar from your high school years. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a familiar wall calendar, the kind my mother had kept in our kitchen to track family commitments. "Look at how many of Jason's games are marked, how many of Kyle's events. And here," she zoomed in on a small notation in the corner of one square, "your national merit announcement squeezed in like an afterthought." She looked up at me. "I'm not saying I was a perfect mother, Danielle, but I never realized how unbalanced things were until I saw it laid out like this." The acknowledgement, partial as it was, left me speechless. For decades, I had tried to make my family see the pattern of favoritism, only to be dismissed as oversensitive or attention-seeking. "I don't expect this one conversation to fix everything," my mother continued when I didn't respond. "But I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand, and I'm sorry we didn't appreciate your path." "My path," I repeated, finding my voice. "Mom, do you know what my path actually was? Do you know I worked 3 jobs during college, that I sometimes chose between buying textbooks or eating dinner, that I graduated with honors despite having no support system?" My mother looked down. "No, I didn't know the details." "Because you never asked. Not once in all these years did you or Dad ever really ask about my life." "You're right," she said quietly. "We didn't ask. And when you told us things, we didn't really listen." We talked for nearly 3 hours. For the first time, I told my mother the full story of my journey from overlooked middle child to successful marketing executive. I didn't soften the difficult parts or downplay the hurt caused by years of favoritism. It wasn't a perfect conversation. My mother still made excuses, at times still tried to defend certain parental decisions. But she was listening, actually listening in a way she never had before. Near the end of our conversation, she shared something unexpected. "My parents did the same thing to me, you know. My brother was their clear favorite. I swore I'd never do that to my children, and then I did it anyway without even realizing." This glimpse into my mother's own childhood wounds didn't excuse the pain she had caused, but it helped me understand the generational pattern at play. The favoritism hadn't started with me, and if I wasn't careful, similar patterns could emerge in my own relationships. As we prepared to leave, my mother asked hesitantly, "Would you be willing to meet with your father too? He's struggling to understand, but he wants to try." I agreed to a brief meeting before returning to Seattle, setting clear boundaries about what I was and wasn't willing to discuss. The conversation with my father was more stilted than the one with my mother, his discomfort with emotional discussions evident in his formal posture and carefully chosen words. "Your mother tells me we may have overlooked your accomplishments," he said, the closest he could come to an apology. "You did." I confirmed, not softening the truth to ease his discomfort. "Consistently and for years." He nodded stiffly. "I'm not good at this sort of talk, but I want you to know I'm proud of what you've accomplished. You've shown remarkable determination." Coming from my father, this qualified as an emotional breakthrough. I accepted his limited acknowledgement for what it was, a first small step toward a more honest relationship. The most surprising development came a week after I returned to Seattle when Jason called. Our last interaction had been his angry text after I refused to bail out his business. "Hey, Danny," he began awkwardly. I owe you an apology." "You do," I agreed, not making it easier for him. "What I asked for last year through Mom and Dad, it was out of line, way out of line. I've had some time to think about it since starting this new job. And I was wrong, Not just about asking you to sell your place, but about a lot of things. I took for granted that people would bail me out when my businesses failed. I never really had to face consequences. His self-awareness was unexpected and frankly suspicious. What brought on this insight? Honestly, my new boss. He's big on personal accountability and therapy. I've been seeing someone to talk about why I keep repeating these patterns. After Jason, even Kyle reached out with a tentative apology, though his was less evolved. Maybe I didn't always see how things were for you growing up. My bad. I maintained healthy skepticism about these sudden family insights. People rarely change completely, especially when family dynamics are deeply entrenched. But I allowed for the possibility of growth while keeping firm boundaries in place. Over the following months, I gradually permitted more contact with my immediate family, always on terms that felt safe and respectful. My mother began sending occasional texts that actually asked about my life, rather than immediately pivoting to news about my brothers. My father forwarded articles related to marketing with brief notes. Thought you might find this interesting. During this period of tentative family reconnection, my relationship with Michael deepened. He understood my caution about introducing him to my family, never pressuring but supporting whatever level of integration felt comfortable. Families are complex, he said one evening as we discussed potentially spending the holidays together. There's no roadmap for healing these kinds of wounds. You get to set the pace. With Zoe starting at Oregon State in the fall, I had reason to visit Oregon more frequently. Each trip included short, bounded interactions with my parents or brothers, sometimes coffee, occasionally a meal, never the extended family gatherings that had historically left me feeling invisible. By Thanksgiving, I felt secure enough to accept my mother's invitation for Michael and me to join the family dinner, with one condition: we would stay at a hotel and attend only the meal itself, maintaining our independence and the ability to leave if things became uncomfortable. That sounds perfectly reasonable, my mother said, another sign of her evolving understanding. We just want to see you. The Thanksgiving gathering was surprisingly manageable. My parents made visible efforts to engage with me about my work and life in Seattle. When Jason started to dominate the conversation, as had always been the pattern, my mother actually redirected. "We've heard about your work, Jason. Tell us more about what Danielle's company is doing." The moment was small but meaningful, an acknowledgement of the old pattern and an attempt to change it. After dinner, as Michael and I prepared to leave for our hotel, my father awkwardly asked for my business card. "I have a friend whose daughter is interested in marketing. Thought you might be willing to give her some advice. She's smart, reminds me a bit of you at that age." The comparison was validating in a way my father couldn't possibly understand. For the first time, he was seeing me clearly enough to recognize my traits in someone else. By Christmas, Michael and I had decided to host our own celebration at my condo, inviting Sophia and her parents, several friends, and yes, my immediate family if they wanted to make the trip to Seattle. To my surprise, they all accepted the invitation. The holiday gathering in my condo, 1 year after the text message that had demanded I sell it, was heavy with symbolism. My family entered the space that had become a flashpoint in our relationship, but now as invited guests rather than entitled demanders. "Your place is beautiful, Danielle," my mother said sincerely, taking in the view that Amy's photo had captured. "You've created a lovely home here." As we all gathered around my dining table, I looked at the faces surrounding me, my chosen family of friends who had supported me unconditionally, my improving but still imperfect family of origin, and Michael, who understood both the wounds and the healing.
The condo that had once been the center of family conflict had become the setting for tentative reconciliation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Later, as everyone mingled after dinner, my mother found me alone on the balcony. "I want you to know," she said, watching the fairy lights move across the darkened sound, "that I'm trying to understand why we did what we did all those years. It doesn't excuse it, but I think we saw you as the strong one, the one who didn't need us as much. We took your independence as a sign that you were fine on your own." "I was independent because I had to be," I replied, "not because I wanted to be." She nodded. "I know that now. And I'm sorry it took us so long to see it. We missed so much of your life, Danielle. I hope it's not too late to know you better." Looking at her profile in the dim light, I saw something I had never fully recognized before: how much I resembled my mother. We shared the same determined set of the jaw, the same analytical gaze. I had inherited more than just her appearance. I had her resilience, her drive, her capacity for hard work. But I was determined to break the cycle of favoritism and emotional blindness that had also been passed down. "It's not too late," I told her. "But it's a process, not an event. Trust builds slowly." "I can work with that," she said. As our guests began to depart, I stood in my living room looking at the same view that had caused so much drama a year earlier. But now, instead of representing a financial resource to be tapped for family emergencies, my condo symbolized something else: the life I had built on my own terms, the boundaries I had established and maintained, and perhaps most importantly, the wisdom I had gained about what real family should be. True family, whether biological or chosen, sees you completely, respects your boundaries, celebrates your successes without jealousy, and supports your growth without condition. I had found that first with my friends, and now in small but meaningful ways, was beginning to experience it with the people who had once overlooked me. The journey wasn't over. Family healing rarely follows a clean, linear path. There would be missteps and old patterns reasserting themselves. But standing in my condo that Christmas night, surrounded by people who were making genuine efforts to see me clearly, I felt a peace I had never expected to find. The photo that had exposed the conditional nature of my family's attention had ultimately led to something valuable: truth. Sometimes the most painful revelations create space for the most meaningful growth. And sometimes being forgotten teaches you exactly who you are and what you deserve. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members who only reached out when they needed something? Did it lead to healing or continued distance? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more authentic stories about family dynamics and personal growth, and share with someone who might be struggling with similar challenges. Remember, your worth isn't determined by family validation, and sometimes the healthiest families are the ones we choose for ourselves. Thank you for listening to my story.